Join the battle to defend science. Get your copy of my book today. Topics include evolution, the Big Bang, flat Earth, young Earth creationism, and more. If you don't debate and just want to learn science, the book is also perfect for you. Check the link in the description or go to bookbaby.com and check out their bookshop. Kindle readers can also get the book on Amazon. Day 746 of trying to get Kent Hovind to tell us what the age of the Earth is. I don't think I've announced this yet here on YouTube. September 18th, I'm debating Kent Hovind on the Standing for Truth YouTube channel. I would love so much to tell you about what my strategy is, but I think I'm going to keep it to myself because I don't want Donnie or Kent or anybody to know what I'm going to talk about ahead of time. We actually have two debates tentatively scheduled, at least. The first one is going to be creation versus evolution. The second debate will be on the geologic column. I have some ideas for how I want the structure of the debate to go, and I haven't run that by Donnie yet. I will be doing that soon, so stay tuned. If there are any developments or changes in it, I'll be sure to let you know. This video randomly came up in my feed on YouTube, so I checked out a little bit of it. The seminar is titled The Age of the Earth, but like every single other time he brings this up, at no point does he address the age of the Earth. Way later in the video, he talks about how old some trees are. He talks about the Sahara Desert, like how several thousand years ago it used to be smaller. That's a cycle that's been understood for a long time. So yes, if we just cherry pick part of a cycle, we can therefore say that's how old everything is. He talks about how old the invention of cuneiform writing is, and a few other things, as if that's how you tell the age of a planet.
Known as the conservation of angular momentum. See, if a spinning object breaks apart, the pieces that fly off are going to spin the same direction because the outside's moving faster than the inside.
I'm pretty sure that's how that works.
And we could talk all day about the conservation laws if you'd like, but the professor said, yes, I know about the conservation laws. I said,
okay. So we're going to pause here because he doesn't address anything that's on this screen here. And this is interesting. So the sun, conservation of angular momentum, the best place to see that is figure skating, because the figure skaters, they start with their arms and legs out wide and they're spinning slow, and then they bring them in and they spin rapidly. If the solar system formed from an accretion disk, which we think it did, we actually have pictures of this happening in other places in our galaxy. But if this is basically how solar systems form, a very large nebulous cloud, gravity attracts everything together, ignites a protostar in the center, and then leftover material collects into planets, moons, and whatever else, then what you should expect is that outside rotating material, as it collapses inward towards the sun, that sun would be spinning very quickly. Now, it turns out that the sun actually spins quite slowly. It takes close to a month for the outside surface of the sun to rotate. For the core of, now, the sun's not a uniform body like Earth, or like, solid body like the Earth, I guess I should say. The core of the sun spins much faster than that. It takes about a week for the core of the sun to rotate. But I trust these figures that they come from real scientists saying the sun has proportionately far less of the angular momentum that you would expect. However, it's worth noting that the sources Kent has on here, like the original one, comes from this book. I couldn't find it on Google Books to actually read it, but it was published in 1978. Some explanations that I have seen include that the outer planets have so much of the angular momentum because the material that made them up, although it's a very small amount of material, didn't collapse inward into the sun, and so that momentum transferred into the planetary body, and so they spin very fast. Jupiter, for example, I think it only takes 10 hours for Jupiter to rotate once, which is pretty incredible. Another thing to keep in mind is our solar system it's just very mysterious. And this isn't the only reason why. There are things about formations of solar systems that aren't standardized. I would say there are plenty of things we know fairly well, but they're not really standardized. And what I mean by that is we find solar systems where there are Jupiter-sized planets that are only like a few million miles away from the sun, or their star, I should say. I couldn't find a figure that said how far away this planet was from its host star, but it completes an orbit in less than 4 Earth days, which is insane. In our solar system, obviously the gas giants are extremely far away. Based on the observations we have, we thought that big planet, the gas giants like that, could only form that far away from the sun or from a host star. Hydrogen is also so incredibly light that the solar wind pushes it away, and that's why the gas giants that hold virtually all of the hydrogen and helium within the planets are so far away. But it turns out that that's not necessarily the case at all. We have a question that we don't yet have an answer for. Kent Hovind has answers that can't be questioned. And his answers also can't explain anything. I don't know exactly what he's going to say, but he's probably going to say, "I know the solution, Mr. Scientist. God did it that way." That's not an explanation. It can't explain anything. That's not an answer or an explanation. It's a conclusion given in desperation by someone whose dogmatism renders them incapable of thinking because they have no answer.
Well, good, sir. Then let me ask you a question. If the universe began as a spinning dot, like you said...
Nobody has ever said that the universe began as a spinning dot.
Why do 2 planets spin backwards, and probably 3?
I don't know what on earth he means by probably 3. Venus spins backwards, and Uranus is weird. To say that Uranus spins backward is kind of strange. So Uranus, we call it the sideways planet, but it's actually tilted beyond sideways. So like what we technically call its north pole is south of the plane of its orbit, if that makes sense. And so is Uranus technically upside down, or does it just spin the other way and therefore its north pole is above its equatorial plane or its orbital plane? We don't know. Venus is so incredibly bizarre because it takes longer for Venus to rotate than it does for it to orbit the sun. And we don't know why. One idea is that Venus got hit so hard, sort of against its rotation by such a big asteroid a very long time ago, that it slowed it down. Well, slowed it down so much that it actually changed directions. And so instead of exactly canceling out its momentum, it skewed it just a tiny bit in the other direction. But the idea that let's just say the universe did begin spinning in some way. Has Kent Hovind, was this his flat earth phase? Did he just neglect that gravity exists and gravity exerts influence on objects as they move around and it can change their trajectories? There's no contradiction there. None of the planets orbit the sun in a different direction. There are a few moons that orbit their host planet in a different direction, which is curious, but again, things move, gravity happens, interactions between massive bodies. There's no contradiction. There's no mystery. I mean, we don't know exactly what led to it happening, but it's not even close to within the realm of impossibility, and it's not even close to not making sense given what we already know. Again, it's not an explanation. Kent, why did God create a universe where Venus rotates really slowly the other direction? Because God did. Wow.
He got real quiet, puzzled look on his face. I said, "Sir, why do 8 out of 91 known moons spin backwards? Why do Jupiter, Saturn, and Neptune have moons going both directions at the same time?"
I don't believe for even 1 second that he got real quiet when he brought this up.
Why is the sun 98% hydrogen and helium, but the other planets are less than 1% hydrogen and helium?
Well, the sun has most of the mass, and the most common element is hydrogen. And again, what we thought before was it's too hot and the solar wind is too great for hydrogen and helium to be that close to the sun. Now with that super Jupiter, that kind of super Jupiter, that throws a little bit of a monkey wrench into that. Although if that's the only major planet with that star, then it would have it. Then that planet has sufficient mass to be able to exist there. Its mass can hold the hydrogen there. But that article did say that it's losing 200,000 tons of material per second. But again, let's ask the question, why did God do it that way? And there isn't even a possible answer. All you can do is beg the question when you give the answer and just say, that's how God did it. It's not exactly begging the question because you're answering why with how, but I think it basically is circular reasoning and begging the question. Why is it that way? Because it was done that way by the thing in question.
And why are these 9 planets so different from each other? If it all came from a Big Bang, I mean, why are they all so different?
Why would they not be different? Where's the contradiction? If it all came from God, why would they all be different? Why would the universe not be swarming with life if God is a jealous God that demands that we worship it? Why would God create a universe that is almost completely like the existence of Earth means nothing in the context of the universe? So why was God so wasteful? A typical response to that is it was for us to be able to look at God's majesty, which is cute, but it's really not a good explanation at all. Because what you're doing is you're letting the data tell you what your God is like, rather than predicting anything about your God and then looking for and then observing the world sort of in the context of that and trying to test and confirm that idea, which actually is what happened at first. People thought that nobody thought that the planets were anything other than stars. Nobody thought the universe was as big as it was. Everybody thought that Earth was far more special than it really is. So as a matter of fact, everything we know about cosmology today betrays everything that early Christians would have thought about cosmology.
Very different compositions. And why do some whole galaxies spin backwards? CNN did an article.
I was really confused at first because in space, there's no such thing as how do I say this? There's no standard up, down, left, right, or anything like that in space. Here's a collage of some galaxies. See how this galaxy, it's broadside to us, whereas this galaxy, it's the thin side to us. And we can see that they come in all kinds of different orientations because there's no such thing as a proper or real up, down, left, right, x-axis, y-axis, z-axis in space. From our point of view, you'd be able to see one galaxy spinning clockwise and the other spinning counterclockwise. There's no problem with that. However, that's not what this article says, and it's extremely blurry. But it says here that this galaxy, see how they have these arms that extend out from them? You can see that. You can see it really well with this bar galaxy right here. What this article says is this galaxy, 2 of its arms appear to be spinning in a different direction than the rest of the galaxy is. How did that happen? I don't know. I'm not going to look into the story.
I said, sir, why are these things going backwards?
Ask your God, and you will get no answer.
He said, I don't know. Why do you think they're going backwards? I was hoping he was going to ask that. I said, sir, it's real simple. You see, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth, and God did it that way on purpose just to make the Big Bang Theory look stupid.
I don't even know how to make fun of him for that. That was so just incredibly bad. I will just let that stand on its own.
Reasons, okay? If the Big Bang Theory were true, the matter would be evenly distributed. But it's not.
No, it is.
Serious problems with the Big Bang Theory.
No, there
Even
are
Fred
not.
Hoyle.
So Even Fred Hoyle, yeah, the guy that didn't believe in the Big Bang, but the guy that, I don't think Fred Hoyle was a Christian. I don't know if you guys have seen this image before, but of the web, I don't know what they call this, the cosmic web or something like this. It's just a map of all of the matter distributed in our universe. And so what we're looking at here, these aren't nebulas, these aren't clouds, these aren't even galaxies, these are galaxy clusters. Something like this bright spot in the middle, that could be hundreds or even thousands of galaxies. Off the top of my head, I don't exactly know. We do find some voids in here. The largest one that we know of, it's called like the Boots Void. Boots Void is nearly 330 million light years across. Oh no! But when we zoom out, we can see that this actually is very evenly distributed. Even the most extreme example we know of, the Boots Void, that's like almost exactly 1/3 of 1% of the diameter of the observable universe. So it's nothing. Now, what you have to keep in mind is, again, the existence of gravity, right? For billions of years, matter's been spreading out. But over those billions of years, gravity has been collecting objects together. So we would expect to see that there would be places in space where matter is less concentrated and places where it's more concentrated. But it should still be extremely uniform, and it is. Plus, the CMB radiation was the most, or still is, the most perfect black body radiation that's ever been observed, ever. Exactly consistent with the Big Bang. And now Kent is going to tell us about how when they started making the teachers teach evolution in schools, society started to decay.
Our whole science curriculum and other curriculums were rewritten to make sure evolution was taught. And by 1963, the average textbook had 33,000 words about evolution. By 1963, prayer was taken out of our school system.
In accordance with the law.
Anybody remember that? Madeline Murray O'Hare? By 1963, we started to see a great rise in premarital sex for every single age bracket.
I don't know when this was recorded, so I don't know how dishonest he's being, or even if he's being dishonest. But notice how this ends in 1990. Well, it turns out that 1990, I think actually 1991, was basically the peak year for this. Not only are the numbers today drastically lower than they were in 1990, but I think they're basically back to the pre-1963 levels. This is important because Kent Hovind would say that we're getting less godly, or he doesn't think that his side is winning the battle, and that's crucial. So as things have gotten worse, the problem that he said is being caused by this got better. We can see the exact same sort of thing with teen births. They've crashed. They're like, 75% lower than they were in the 90s? Prepare to be not even remotely surprised. What part of the country, or parts of the country, do you think have the highest rates of teen pregnancy? The satanic and secular West Coast and Northeast? No, it's the Bible Belt, and it's not even remotely close.
We saw a great rise in sexually transmitted diseases for 10 to 14-year-olds.
Do you see how the peak there in 1985, it starts to go down? Kent, why didn't you make the graph go longer? Because if he had, then you'd be able to see that, oh look, not only did the rate go down, but the rate actually became significantly lower than it was before evolution got thrown into the textbooks. It has gone up. It is currently starting to trend to go back down, but we are still hovering right at those 1950, 1960 levels.
Violent crimes, nearly 1,000% increase.
Once again, we have stopped our graph at the 90s. Why is that? Because if he would have kept going, we would have seen that the rate absolutely plummeted. Perhaps you've heard that one of the contributing factors to violent crime decreasing in the 90s is actually abortion. That is a really popular myth, but it's just absolutely a myth. And we can tell it is pretty simply. What you do is you look at the rate of crime in age brackets. Now, if you want to understand crime, or if you want to know where is the crime taking place, you look at men between the ages of 16 and 35. They're the ones committing virtually every single violent crime. Now, if abortion had something to do with this, then what we would do is we'd look at the population in like the 90s when the crime spike was extremely high. We would take the demographic of young men at that time and then look at the rate of violent crime within them decades later. What you'd expect to find is they still have quite a high rate of violent crime. And then if abortion had anything to do with this, then you would see a drop-off in violent crime those many decades later, when all these children that were never born because of abortion are now at that age. That was not the reality that we found when that demographic in the 90s, when crime was very high, when they grew up, they weren't committing nearly as many violent crimes. And decades later, still the rate of violent crime in that crucial demographic, young men, was still the overwhelming majority. Arguably, the single biggest factor in dropping the violent crime rate was getting lead out of gasoline. This is one of the most amazing graphs of all time, and it underscores the importance in scientific literacy and policy making. Lead is absolutely detrimental to the neural development, to the mental health of an individual. And we know that IQ is a significant factor in predicting delinquency, crime, psychopathy, all kinds of things. We offset the years so that the violent crime statistics overlap when the effects of cleaning up lead in our environment would match with people that come into the age where violent crime becomes very common. Again, men about age 16 to 35. And you can see that if we offset that by 23 years, the correlation is almost too perfect. It's not the reason, but it's probably the biggest reason. Science and education is also the reason why the Bible Belt still has so many problems with STDs and teen pregnancies, and the rest of the country does not. This is exactly why so many people hold people that think the way Kent do in contempt. I try to resist a little bit, but stuff like this really radicalizes me. You're ruining the country. That's all for today. I'll see you tomorrow.